Welcome to our final chapter on investing. And in this chapter, we're going to take a look at real estate as an investment and some other investment alternatives. Why? Because not everyone wants to invest in mutual funds. However, having said that, we must caution that for the vast majority of us, these are just not the most popular, nor accessible, nor profitable investments. Okay? All right. And we'll see why as we work through chapter 15 on real estate and other investment alternatives. Slide number 2. There are two different types of real estate investments. There are direct investments and then there are indirect investments. And as we discussed in chapter 7, your home is typically the major asset of most households. So when people say, well, why are you just invested in stocks? Well, you know what? I have a condo, I have a home, so I also have some real estate. The difference is I get to live in the house. I don't get to live in a mutual fund. It has many great tax advantages, as we learned in chapter 3, and it is a good hedge against inflation, typically, because overall a home produces an after inflation return of about 2.5% a year, which is nationally the average, but in San Diego, no, it's been a hell of a lot more. But in my humble opinion, it is a home first and investment second. Now you're going to hear differently, mostly from the real estate agents, that, oh, no, this is an investment. You're going to buy here in this neighborhood, and then 5 years from now, you're going to sell that house and buy another house in an up-and-coming neighborhood, and you're going to give me a commission every few years because I need them. No. For me, a house is a home first and investment second. And for others, they look at it as an investment first, a house second. I disagree. Now, here are some other examples of direct real estate investments. Some people will have a vacation home. Now, you have to be careful. You have to check out what the IRS rules are, or whether or not they view it as a rental property or your vacation home. Rental property is what most people think of when they think of investing in real estate. And folks, this is a whole course unto itself, really, and it's not easy to teach. It is not easy to teach, learn from a book or teach from a 3-unit financial planning class. You really have to learn by doing and getting your knuckles bloodied, which is why if you are at all interested in real estate investing from, a landlord perspective, owning the property, I recommend that you get a job in the industry. Work for an appraiser or a property management company or an escrow company, because then you'll see, oh boy, what is all entailed with owning property for rent. I'm not trying to dissuade you from doing that, folks. That's not the issue. It's just that it is not a trivial task. It's not like putting $50 a month in the mutual fund. Remember the PETA factor for mutual funds? Very, very low. The PETA factor for properties, for real estate, very, very high. Now, the greatest gains can be gotten from undeveloped land. But there's a saying in the industry, never invest in dirt. Do not go out and buy a piece of property without any income, no building on it to gain rent from. It could be a phenomenal buy or it could be a disaster, because there's a reason why you're able to afford it. At least here in San Diego, all the good properties are already bought up, and you're not, unless you go out to Jacamba, right, or Boulevard, but that's a whole different world out there. There's no cash flow. You still have to pay the property taxes, and there's no guaranteed you're going to be able to develop the land because of zoning issues or just financing. So if you really do want a career in real estate development, don't do it alone. Get a job within a real estate development company and learn the ins and outs and all the resources that you're going to need to pull it off. And even then, you hear stories about some of the best real estate investors in the world just going belly up because it didn't turn out the way it was supposed to. Now, for those of us who don't want to be a landlord, there are indirect investments, real estate syndicates, and limited partnerships. Personally, I'd stay away from these unless you get a phenomenal referral, or the people, their track record. But here's something that is actually a very good way to invest in real estate without having to be a landlord and having to have a whole lot of money and a whole lot of PITA. It's called a real estate investment trust. Now, we made mention of it in the previous chapter when we looked at some mutual funds that actually invest in REITs, real estate investment trusts. Now, they look like stocks. They're really not stocks, folks. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not a corporate lawyer, certainly. They are not corporations. They are trusts, and trusts are tricky, as we'll learn in our next chapter. But that's what they use for these entities that hold real estate. So you can think of them like a mutual fund, but instead of holding stocks or bonds, they hold shopping centers and apartment buildings and warehouses. The folks who the Home Depots of the world, the Walmarts of the world, they don't own the buildings. I mean, some of them maybe they're owned, but most of them are leased for 40 or 50 years. And then there are the pads, they call them, the ancillary, the auxiliary shops that are on the same shopping center or mall or whatever. And that job is done by the real estate investment trust. They're the ones who keep up the building, who collect the rent and pass it on to you as the real estate investment trust shareholder. So they look like stocks. And if you learn how to value stocks in BUS121 Introduction to Investments, my apologies, I keep plugging the next class, you'll learn how to value real estate investment trusts. The next category here on slide number 4 is called an equity share. We discussed this briefly in chapter 7, where you as the investor put money down on the property, but you don't live there. It's typically done within a family, but doesn't have to be. Make sure you get a good real estate lawyer to draw up all the documents. Somebody else, usually the younger couple, then the parents or the grandparents have the money for the down payment. The younger couple wants to live in the place. They keep it up. And as the property appreciates, you get to share in the appreciation. And eventually, what usually happens is the younger couple are now older, and they refinance or they move someplace else and they buy out the parents or the grandparents. And so it's typically 50-50. If the house goes up $100,000, the investors will get $50,000 and the people who live there get $50,000. So it can be very profitable, but don't do it on a handshake. Get a lawyer to sign, to get all the papers to get right. Okay, you got it. Okay, I said that already. Now, you can actually play the part of the bank or the mortgage company with what are called hard money loans, first and second mortgages. And I was always very, very skeptical about this. But a friend of mine asked me to come to a presentation given by a woman from a company that did these hard money loans. Because these are people who take these loans are not going to be touched by the bank or credit union. Forget it. The mortgage company doesn't want to talk to them. So instead of a 3, 4, 5, now 6% loan, they would have a 10, 11, 12% loan for their home. Yeah. And so you got to know that you're taking on serious risk. So I was skeptical. And she did a presentation. She seemed very competent. And my first question was, she said, okay, you have any questions? And he's just sitting there waiting for me to ask the questions because that's why he brought me there. And I said, well, what's your default rate? And she said, what? I said, how many loans are in trouble? How many do you have to foreclose on? And she goes, well, we got a little over 200 and 2 are giving us serious problems. We're probably going to have to foreclose. And then there's another 2 that are, they're having troubles, but we're pretty sure they're going to pull through because they've done so in the past. And I said, that's it? You have a 1% default rate? Any mortgage company would be happy with that. They did their due diligence. They made sure the person was a bona fide individual, not just some crackpot, but able to pull it off. And they only did 70% loan to value. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, don't worry about it. But I was really impressed. And we asked her to come and speak to our investment club. Now I'm going to forget her name, of course. Joanna Ortega at Federal Home Loan. And the students were enthralled. She's really, really impressive. So there's a good referral for you. But remember, you're going to lend your money to somebody. They're the intermediary. They do all the paperwork and everything. So they take their cut of about 1%. And you're going to get a really good return on your investment. And you have to remember that with higher return comes higher risk. So there's a referral for you. Low-income housing, this is typically for people who've got a lot of money. And they're really, really looking for the tax credit, the tax deduction. But eventually the idea, if it works out, is that the low-income housing will become a bona fide real estate investment. But at first, it's mostly for people who are in very high tax brackets. Okay, so those are some indirect investments where you don't have to fix a toilet, nor do you have to fix a tenant. Commercial property. Oh, forget it here in San Diego. Just forget it. If you're thinking about commercial property, how about a duplex or a small apartment buildings are going, and they're in the millions, just small apartment buildings, hotels, office buildings, stores. Just it's not going to happen for the vast majority of us. Maybe someday you might build yourself up to buy a commercial investment property, but in San Diego, forget it. The idea is you want to have what's called positive cash flow. You want the rent to be covering the mortgage and the taxes and the maintenance and the insurance and the utilities. And forget it. It's just not going to happen. You're looking at negative cash flow for many years. The rule of thumb is you want 7 to 10 times rent to pay for the price. So that means if you're getting about, $40,000 worth of rent, you really only want to spend $400,000 for the property. Not here in San Diego. Anytime. Well, back after the crash of 2008 and 9, after the global financial crisis, you actually could find some deals. Think about it. Think about it after another global financial crisis. We don't really want one to happen, but we know someday they're going to happen. And so you might be ready to pounce then. And if you've been working in the industry, exactly, opportunity. It comes from crises. Slide number 6. Fixer-uppers. Again, San Diego, elsewhere in the country, other parts of the country, it's not too difficult, but you have some of the best, sharpest sharks in the waters here with regard to real estate investors. So fixer-uppers, if they're actually worth fixing up, get snapped up very quickly. But again, I would concentrate on smaller properties, maybe 2, a duplex. You can live in one, rent out the other, so at least if they're having parties at 2 a.m. in the morning. Look for low down payments and seller financing of rundown properties, because if it's a rundown property, typically the banks don't really want to take it on. So the seller might be ready to retire and no longer wants to handle the chores, and there are chores, folks, of owning properties. So he or she wants to sell, or they want to sell. And so you ask them, hey, will you be the bank? We'll pay you a down payment and then go to a lawyer, get the loan documents all filled out by a lawyer, and then we will pay you the mortgage. And here's the interest rate that we're looking at. And so the seller might say, hey, I'm going to get, income from my property. I'm not going to get the whole kit and caboodle. I don't need the whole kit and caboodle. I'll be happy with the down payment and then have a stream of income. Cool. But if the property is in foreclosure, banks are usually all too happy to finance a rundown foreclosure because they're not in the real estate business. They don't want to own real estate. They want the loan. They want their money. Again, San Diego, not typical. But after the global financial crisis, there were dozens, hundreds, thousands of these things. And you couldn't get the banks to contact you. They'd say, oh, yeah, we'll get back to you in 3 months. What do you mean 3 months? I want to know now if you want me to buy this place. We got 10,000 of these things on the books. What are we going to do? Stay away from property managers. Look, there are always exceptions, but nobody cares about your property as much as you do. I think you should work for a property manager because then you'll learn everything that needs to be done and you'll know the ins and outs. The property managers typically take 10%, and there are some good ones out there, but for the most part, I don't trust them. But that doesn't mean there aren't good ones, folks. Any property managers out there ready to skewer me? Yes. Slide number 7. Most importantly, are you savvy dealing with repairs and are you savvy dealing with renters? Because fixing a tenant is just as important as fixing a toilet. One bad tenant can set you back thousands of dollars. I don't know if you looked at some of the photos from chapter 7, but oh my goodness. I mean, you can't imagine what some people do to the place. Yeah. Add improvements that add perceived value. This is a wonderful book, especially if you do want to become a real estate investor and do your own work or hire people to do it for you, or maybe get a property manager. But this gentleman, he wrote a few books, but I use the telephone. Mario, help! Jason, Sam, help! Because you got to find people who know what they're doing. Good plumbers, good electricians, good handymen, and construction people. But this guy is one of them. And he said, install a white picket fence in his book. Oh, it's adorable. He says it just raises the value of your house $20,000. I don't know why, but anyway, he in his book talked about how he took a house that was settling, which is typical. Houses settle. It's not necessarily a horrible thing, but the house looks tilted. So when he replaced the doors and the windows, he tilted them in the opposite direction. Very cool. Hey, it's nothing new. Look at the Leaning Tower of Pisa. You can see that the Italian engineers, as they were building the place, started to lean. So at the top, they tilted it. It didn't help that much. But anyway, this guy's a great guy to read. A lot of fun. How about what are some of the advantages of real estate investments? Well, as we said, it's a hedge against inflation. During inflation times, real estate tends to do well. Not always. But yes, 2022, we're seeing real estate fall as interest rates rise, and they're raising the interest rates to kick down the inflation that was created by that stupid microbe. Darn COVID. Financial leverage. The use of borrowed funds for investment purposes that allows you to acquire a more expensive property than you could on your own. And remember how we said, make love, not loans, and don't take on too much debt, or don't take on any debt that goes out the window when you're talking about real estate. And we'll take a look at that in just a few slides here. For real estate partnerships, there's easy entry, limited liability if you're a limited partner, and no management concerns. And the same thing is true for REITs. But one of the best things that used to be, I thought but not anymore thanks to the Infernal Net, is that you just can't check your price of your real estate investments every day on the internet, right? Which is one of the major problems with stocks. People say, oh yeah, I'm in it for the long term. And then every 5 minutes they're looking at their phone. It's gone down 25 cents. What should I do? Oh, it's gone up $1. Let's buy more. Stocks are long-term investments, and so is real estate. And now with Zillow and Trulia and what's the other one? Redpath? No, Red something or other. You can now check the price of your house and your real estate investments every day. Don't do it, folks. Don't do it. Don't do it. You'll drive yourself crazy. What are some of the disadvantages of real estate? Well, we discussed the idea of liquidity. And real estate is the poster child for poor liquidity because it may be hard. to sell your property or your shares of the property if it's a partnership. It's not a problem with REITs because they buy and sell like a stock. They go bing, bing. But how long does it take to sell a house? Well, typically 2, 3, 6 months. There are times in San Diego where you put the for sale sign, you put it on the Infernal Net, on the multiple listing service Thursday afternoon. By Saturday, you have 5, 6, 10 offers, and Sunday you write the sales agreement. But those are unusual times, and they typically precede yet another downturn. Yes, you understand. And then there are times when houses just aren't selling, and people are just sitting there and saying, I'm not going to lower my price. I'm not going to lower price. Well, guess what? You're not going to sell until you lower your price. And that's the issue of liquidity. It's an issue. But again, if you think of it, real estate as a long-term investment, it's not the end of the world. Normally, there's a lack of diversification. With REITs and partnerships, it's not a problem. We talked about the passive tax shelter for real estate syndicates. Folks, stay away from these unless you have money to burn. And then we discussed management or tenant problems. The PETA factor, right? The PETA factor with real estate is sky high. And property values can decline. Oh, yes, they can. And I remember in the mid-2000s, people telling me, well, housing prices are never going to go down. I said, oh, really? Yeah, they did in 1990, 1989, 1990, 91. They did. Yeah. And they did again in 2008 and 9, 10, 11, 12. And now it looks like they're going to do it again, but we'll see. And so this is what you would hear, right? Come on, Payano, admit it. Real estate's the perfect investment. This is what people were telling me last year or a couple years ago. And then in the mid 2000s, beware the permanent trend. I love that. Permanent trend. That's an oxymoron, right? Jumbo shrimp, straight curve. Andrew Tobias. Real estate goes up and down in cycles. Ask those who bought in 1990, sold in 94. They lost 25%. Ask those who bought in 2006 and went through foreclosure and lost everything. There is now much worry about interest rates. But look, if you plan to live there or hold the property for the long term, you should do well, in my opinion. It's not as if San Diego is becoming less desirable to live in. Right, yeah. Oh, by the way, there is no perfect investment, okay? Just remember that. Every investment has advantages. Every investment has disadvantages. People were saying this back in 1999 about internet stocks. Blue skies, productivity gains for as far as we can see the next year or two. And same thing with real estate in the mid 2000s, and same thing with Beanie Babies when they were hot, and cryptocurrencies. We'll discuss those later on. Every investment has advantages. Every investment has disadvantages. And so what our goal for you is that you have your eyes wide open when you get into this. You know the possible upsides and the possible downsides. Risk versus return. Risk versus return. Do you want to eat well or do you want to sleep well? And as we saw with some investments, they can let us eat reasonably well and sleep reasonably well. And real estate typically isn't one of them. What about leverage? What about the ability to make money with other people's money? I already told you about that, didn't I? But isn't that what makes real estate such a great investment? Well, yes. In fact, when we discussed the long-term returns from real estate, we said that 7-8% is really not indicative of what you're going to make if you invest in real estate in the way that most people invest in real estate. And so what we're going to do is look at two problems from one of the older textbooks, circa 2004, as the real estate bubble was really starting to take hold. And so here is the first problem, number one. That's what they numbered it. And they didn't use silly names like I do. They just used Dave. So I didn't touch it. I just copied it verbatim. Thank you very much. Calculating the return on investment. Dave bought a rental property for $200,000 cash. 1 year later, he sold it for $240,000. What was the return on his $200,000 investment? Now, in the in the Introduction to Investments class, we learned this formula. What we do is we take the absolute dollar return, and in this case, that's $240,000, the selling price, minus $200,000, the initial price. And we have to, we're not going to worry about the closing costs and all that other stuff. We're just going to just use whole dollars here. And then we take that dollar return, that absolute dollar return, and we invest it by how much we had to pay to buy the investment, what we brought to the table. You hear people say, what did you bring to the table? So 40,000 divided by 200,000 is 0.2 or 20%, which is what was going on. And housing usually goes up, 6, 7, 8%. And here it was going up 20, 30% a year. Quick, run down. They're giving away free money because it only cost us, in this case, it cost us 200,000 to make 40,000, right? We had to bring to the table 200,000 if we bought it in cash. But is that how most real estate transactions occur? No. Most real estate transactions are mortgaged. They use borrowed money. They use financial leverage. So here's the same problem, but this time he only came up with $20,000 and he borrowed the rest. This is called 10% financing or 10% equity, 90% financing. So the loan to value is 90%, which is not typical anymore, folks. They usually, not anymore. It might have been typical in the past, but now they want 25% down payment and 75% or 70% financing, loan to value. It's called 70%. And so in this case, he only had to come up with $20,000. He only had to bring $20,000 to the table. So what's his return on investment? Well, the absolute dollar return is the same. Okay? Yeah, 40,000. But now he only had to come up with $20,000, his initial investment, what he brought to the table. So $40,000 return, absolute dollar return, divided by a $20,000 investment gives us 2.0. 200%. It only cost us $20,000 to make $40,000. And this is what was going on. And as JP Morgan said, there is nothing more hazardous to your financial health than seeing your idiot, he didn't use the word idiot, but your idiot neighbor down the street getting rich. Me some too. It's great while the property values are going up and people were buying condos before they were even bought and before they were even built, and they put down $30,000 or whatever. And then 9 months later, when the place is ready to move in, they would sell it at $50,000, $60,000, $100,000 more than what the price was. Do you see how people just got heady and everybody, quick, they're giving away free money, run down. Yeah, it's like musical chairs, folks. As long as the music's playing, sure, you're going to do just fine. But when the music stops, you better be sitting in a chair. But a lot of people weren't, because this is exactly what happened. Now, this one was conveniently left out of the book, and I called it number 666 as a joke. I hope I don't offend anybody. That was actually in the number of days that the guy who wrote, same guy who wrote John, who wrote the Revelation. That's how many days the Roman Empire had until it was going to fall. He was only off by about 300 years. Anyway, calculating the return on investment using financial leverage, and things do not go as planned. Suppose Dave invested only $20,000 of his own money, borrowed the $180,000, 90% financing, and the property value went down 20%. Now the question is, what's he going to tell his wife? That's the question. And this is exactly what happened. In fact, they went down 40, 50, 60, 70%. So this is what happens. The drop in value is $40,000 because 20% of 200,000 is $40,000. Now he can find a buyer for the property at 160. That's what the fair market value is at this point. So he has lost $40,000 of the price of the house. Now, if he goes to try to sell it, the bank's going to say, well, we want $180,000. We want our money back. We're not going to let you sell it until you come up with $180,000. He is underwater. He has negative equity, which I think is a stupid name, but that stupid phrase, but that's what they say. So now what is he going to do? Well, that's the problem. This is the problem that people were facing. Thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people were facing this problem in the global financial crisis of 2008, 9, 10, 11, 12, and 13. He can walk away. He's lost his $20,000. That's gone. He can walk away. He can go through bankruptcy, foreclosure, let the bank foreclose. Some people did that. They just lived in it until the bank kicked them out. Or if he renting the place out, he would accept the rent from people, not make the mortgage payments, and eventually the poor renters would get a letter from the bank saying, we are now the owners of the bank. Here's a check for $3,000. Will you leave in 30 days? Now, you'd want to break the guy's kneecaps if they did that. And I know I met at least one person who did it, and she was as slimy as they come, folks. Yeah, so now the answer to the question, what is he going to tell his wife, is, oh, dear, we have a problem. So do you see, we discussed this a little bit in Chapter 7. You see what the banks went through? You see what happened when the organic matter hit the ventilating device? Now he can find a buyer for $160,000. He can go to the bank and say, I got a buyer at $160,000. Will you do a short sale? Which means the bank says, all right, we'll take the $160,000. We'll forgive the extra $20,000 that you still owe us. And he's off the hook. But then they send the IRS a notice that they forgave the loan to the tune of $20,000. And guess what? Dave owes taxes on that amount. The IRS says if somebody forgives a loan for you, that's income. Oh boy. How about kicking a guy when he's down? So the Congress stepped in and said, you know what? We're going to forgive. We're going to waive the taxes on these forgiven loans. I think they did it until 2013, right? I think January 2013 is when they reinstituted it. So yeah. Okay, fine. Let's continue. So you see, leveraging magnifies your gains when things go up, and they magnify your losses when things go down. Now, what about real estate and IRAs? You know what? You really should skip these three or whatever, 2-3 slides, because don't do it. You can do it. Yes, many people believe it's prohibited, but there are strict, complicated rules. Don't try to go it alone. There are huge penalties if you break the rules. 15% to 110%. There are few knowledgeable regulated trustees and advisors. You have to find somebody who really knows what they're doing. They usually have high operating fees and expenses. It can't be your home. It can't be your business. It can't be your parents nor your children's home. But it can be your brothers or sisters. Figure that one out. You must have sufficient cash in the account to perform the necessary transactions. If not, you got to sell the property, or you have to deposit more cash into the IRA. But if you go over the annual maximum contribution level, then you'll be penalized 6% per year on the amount over deposited until there is sufficient cash in the IRA and you're able to withdraw the amount that you over deposited. Huh? Why? In other words, you have to put more than the $6,000. It's going up in 2023. But you're not supposed to do that. And if you do that, you get hit 6% per year for every year that it's been over deposited. You didn't follow me. Good. Don't do it. And for this reason, people often pool their IRAs, which is normally forbidden. You're not allowed to pool your IRA. How do they get away with it? I don't know. Seek a reputable, experienced trustee. But the problem is, real estate in an IRA, the advantages are dubious. Investment real estate often has many of the same advantages as an IRA without any of the constraints of the IRA. Capital gains taxes are deferred until you sell the property, which may not be until retirement. You might never sell the property. You might leave it to your kids. You might just live off the rent. Income is usually negative or minimal for years. Real estate offers many tax deductions, which you're not allowed to take if you get inside the IRA. And if you just live in the house, even if you rented it for 20 years, if you live in the house for 2 years, 2 of the last 5 years before you sell it, and declare it as your principal residence. If you're single, $250,000 capital gains tax-free. Married, $500,000 capital gains tax-free. That means you bought it for $200,000. If you're married, you can sell it for $700,000 and not pay any capital gains. That's pretty darn cool. And some people are doing it. People who are very savvy, buying fixer-uppers, living them in 2 years, usually have another job, and fixing them up. They can fix toilets, they can fix plumbing, they can fix flooring and some electrical. And then they sell it after 2 years and no taxes. Very cool. Or the advantages can be compelling. For example, I know one gentleman who was able to put a investment property, a small, not a big one, but in a Roth IRA. All capital gains, rental income from that property is tax-free once he's in retirement. So in other words, the rent keeps building up in the account. And when he goes to retire at 59 and a half, or there's a few other ways you can do it, but after you're 59 and a half, he can take it all out tax-free. Very cool. Plus, as we said, you can't check the price of your real estate investments every day on the Infernal Net. Well, yeah, you can with Zillow and Trulia, but don't do it. Real estate is a long-term investment. Yes, it is. Okay, wait a minute, Pam. Did you say that there are no capital gains taxes on real estate? Currently, as the law stands now, as long as the real estate is your primary residence for 2 of the last 5 years, you pay no capital gains on the first $250,000 if you're single, $500,000 if you're married. That's very cool. Oh, by the way, capital losses on your primary residence are not tax deductible because it's a home first and investment second. And be careful, the property must be your principal residence. If you own 2 or more properties and frequent each regularly, the IRS can rule that none of your properties is your principal residence. There was a well-celebrated case of a couple, they're well-to-do, had a property in Wisconsin, had a property in Arizona, and one in Florida. And they moved around. They continually moved around. When they went to sell one of the properties, they said, this is our principal residence. The IRS said, no, it's not. It's not your principal residence. You don't have a principal residence. Yeah. And so on their website are a list of questions. Where do you work? Where do you vote? Where do you, all these other questions that where are you registered to vote? And they're like, that define whether or not this house is your principal residence. So do be careful for those of you who are lucky enough to have several principal residences that you frequent. Okay. All right. That's it for real estate. Now we'll come back to it maybe a bit, but first, we're going to discuss precious metals. Now, when you first thought, okay, yeah, we're gonna learn about investing. We're gonna invest in gold. Gold. Don't you want? No, folks, it's not a good investment, folks. It's really not. Now, gold is good for certain things. The dentist will tell you it's the best stuff that you can put in your teeth. It makes great jewelry. It's some of the best electrical conductors in the planet. But they have other things that can work. Where are you going to keep it? Yeah, in your house? Don't put it in the bank in the safety deposit box, because if there is a global financial crisis where the whole thing falls down, you're not going to be able to get in the bank. They're going to have armed guards out there. Some people will buy gold by buying gold mining stocks or mutual funds that literally invest in gold. You hope it's gold. It looks like gold. It might be lead painted to look like gold. But if you're this is Tom Petruno. I am so sad he retired because he was one of my favorite writers from the Los Angeles Times for finance and investments. If your reason for owning gold has something to do with the end of the world as we know it, shotguns and canned food probably would be more practical investments. Yes, if you really do believe that the global economy is going to fall apart, crack, dissolve into a pool of tears, get out of the northern hemisphere. Go down to Tasmania or Tierra del Fuego, learn to raise goats and wheat and sorghum and yeah. This is the problem that the survivalists, I got 4,000 rounds of ammunition and enough food for 2 years. There's 50,000 people scouring the countryside for food. How many can you kill? Right? And then what do you do with the bodies? And then there's 500,000 coming that way. Yeah, failure is not an option. Failure is not an option, in my humble opinion. Now, silver, again, it has more um, applications than gold, but not as much as it used to. Silver is still very much used in several industrial applications, but the biggest use of silver is long gone. And some of you have never even seen a little yellow Kodak box in the grocery store, in the 7-Eleven, in the pharmacy. They were everywhere because people needed film to take pictures. Yeah, well, that's gone. And then now here are some precious metals that actually might be good investments, but again, be careful where you're going to keep them. And palladium, platinum, rhodium, these are becoming more and more and more important with regard to clean energies, such as catalytic converters. In fact, cars are being stolen just for the catalytic converter. Or they leave the car there, they just cut off the catalytic converter. And so now, if you have one of the cars that has a really good catalytic converter, hybrid cars seem to have the best, there are devices that you can put underneath the car to keep it from the catalytic converter from being stolen. Yeah. So let's take a look at how well gold has done, folks. This is a graph that we use in the first chapter of Business 123, Introduction to Investments. And we see that stocks have just destroyed all the other investments since the dawn of the Industrial Revolution. Bonds have done okay, and savings accounts have done okay. They took the dollar into $5,600. But look, a dollar became millions of dollars, and that's how much our economy has expanded, how our standard of living has just skyrocketed. And then look at gold. It barely has kept up with inflation. It has, but just barely, and sometimes not. And when does gold do well? It does well when people believe the world is going to end. Here's the Civil War. Here's the Great Depression, World War II, the 1970s when inflation was running hot. But then in 1980, it touched $800 an ounce, as I remember, or maybe 1980. 20 years later, it was down to $250 an ounce. Then it skyrocketed and fell down. It's pure speculation, because what are you going to do with the gold? What are you going to do with it? You're going to have to find somebody else to buy it. So you have to be able to buy low, sell high. There's no income. There's no rent, no interest, no dividends. It doesn't create new products. It doesn't move into new markets. The business, it's beautiful. Don't get me wrong. Gold coins, check them out. But yeah, and it's not a good investment. But if you want gold, go buy gold. What about precious gems? Oh, these are even worse, right? Diamonds are not an investor's best friend. They ain't nothing scarce or treasured about precious gems. They make them now out of carbon, because that's what diamonds are made out of. They're made out of carbon. So there's this business opportunity for certain companies. They've built these devices that will take Fluffy's ashes, your pet dog or cat, and you send them their ashes, and they'll send you back a diamond. They'll even do it with people, because people are made out of carbon. But no. First of all, ask yourself, do you know anybody who has ever sold a diamond at a profit? There are a scant few diamonds in the world that are worth more than what they were worth when they were dug out of the ground. But typically, no, diamonds are not. They're making them, folks. They make diamonds. The biggest use for diamonds, other than jewelry, of course, is to cut things. Yeah. So don't think you're investing when you buy precious gems. What about collectibles? What about buying Beanie Babies or rare coins or stamps or works of art? Cars. I know somebody who's really good at collecting cars. He knows what he's doing. He's got a place to store them. He can work on them. He's a crack mechanic. But no. They can be a great hobby and maybe a good investment, or they can be a financial disaster. And there's the gentleman on El Cajon Boulevard many years ago who supposedly had a storage unit with $50,000 worth of Barbie dolls. And one weekend, they disappeared. He got them back, thankfully. Beware of investment scams, know the dealer's reputation, and listen to Christopher Berge of Christie's Auction. Don't buy art as an investment. Buy art because it moves you. It enthralls you or makes you feel or think or question things. Buy art for the art's sake, not for the investment sake. And I got to tell you, folks, I did buy something a long time ago because I loved it. And a long time ago, I think I paid $20 for the thing. And the last time I checked back in 1994, it's supposedly been worth $500. Now, I didn't try to sell it. I still have it. I'm looking at it right now. I love it. I have no intentions of selling it. I was going to buy an art piece for the investment. And this is, again, was a long time ago after John Lennon was murdered. Most people don't know that John Lennon was also an artist. And his art's okay. It's not fabulous. I like it, but it's not something I would normally buy. But I figured John Lennon, right? This art's going to skyrocket. I am so glad I didn't buy it because it's plummeted in price. You can get his prints now for dirt cheap. If I had bought his guitar, I would have made hundreds of thousands of dollars. Okay, you just never know. Good luck. What about taxes, right? The IRS is trying to tell you something, folks. The maximum capital gains taxes on most all financial and real estate investments is currently 15%. The capital gains taxes on precious metals, art, collectibles is 28%. Plus, you can't put these things into an IRA. You think the Congress is trying to tell you something? Actually, there is a way to put gold coins. They have to be, I think, golden eagle coins, which are United States. There's the Chinese pandas and the Canadian maple leaves and the South African Kruger ants. But the United States golden eagles, you can put in an IRA. But be careful! If you don't do it right, there's a link on the website that tells you what happened to a couple who accidentally did not put the gold in the IRA the correct way, and now they are seriously screwed. Okay, time for another little break here. And this is the new fangled Dutch tulip bulbs, new housing bubble, new stock bubble. It's called cryptocurrencies, Bitcoin, and NFTs for non-fungible tokens. Yeah, non-fungible tokens. It's pure speculation, folks. You must buy low, sell high. There's nothing behind these things except an algorithm. So they're very similar to gold and precious metals, but they're even worse because there's no practical application. At least with gold, you can make jewelry out of it. You can use it in your teeth. You can use it for some electrical applications, but nothing can you do with cryptocurrency. However, the technology behind cryptocurrencies, the blockchain, is very valuable and will survive. In fact, it will thrive. Blockchain will change much of what is done in the financial world. Just stay away from cryptocurrencies. And I wish I could have said it as well as Stephen Colbert, the humorist. It's gold for nerds. He nailed it, right? Gold has always been worth something for people because it's gold. Not because it's actually worth anything, but it's gold. And the same thing is true for these cryptocurrencies. They'll always be worth something, even though they're rife with corruption, rife with hanky-panky, total scams, pump and dump scams. Some people, nerds, are always going to think that it's worth anything. Okay, now here's what I get back. Okay. Oh, come on, Payano. What you got against cryptocurrencies and NFTs? You're just old, that's all. This is the future. We're all going to get rich, rich, rich. Not so fast. Okay. Rebuttal. First of all, as mentioned, you can't invest in a cryptocurrency. You can only speculate. Now, what's the difference, right? We spend a great deal of time in Introduction to Investments discussing the difference between speculation, which is a fancy word for gambling, where you try to buy low, sell high, and hope the other guy, buys higher, and then you get out before the thing crashes. And investing, where you're buying something that has value, that has that produces income or grows in the business, grows the market, creates new products. That's investing. It's a long-term process. Speculating is typically short-term. And cryptocurrencies are pure speculation. The value is worth only what others believe it is worth. Cryptocurrencies don't pay interest, dividend, rents. In other words, there's no cash flow. And more importantly, there's nothing backing the currency. And this is what you get back. But what about the fiat currencies, huh? Aren't they the same? They use the term fiat, which means, basically created out of thin air, but it's not. They're really not fiat currencies. The currencies from the countries. But there's nothing more fiat than cryptocurrency. It's an algorithm on a computer screen. The fiat currencies like dollars and yens and euros and pesos, they're only worth something because we believe they are, right? Ha ha ha. Isn't that the same? No. Now, I'm not going to ask you to take an Econ 101 and then become an Econ PhD major to understand why currencies are worth what they are, but let's just make it simplistic. Slide 26. You will hear people say that our dollars and other fiat currencies like euros and pesos and yen are not backed by gold and are therefore worthless. To which I say, poppycock. By the way, what is gold worth? As we saw, gold also as an investment is a speculation. It's not an investment. You were speculating. Our dollars are backed by our economy, the great American economic machine. Our dollars are backed by what the U.S. can produce and consume, our gross domestic product. And then we're so far removed from it, but we're in it at the same time because we're not at the high level, at the Federal Reserve Bank, and we're not seeing it from the high level. But if you get into economics in a real way, get an econ degree, go on to master's, PhD, teach, and maybe get a job as an economist. There aren't that many of them, to be truthful, folks. They often wind up in finance, where there are plenty of jobs. Our dollars are backed by what we can produce and consume. And so just look, when somebody says, oh, our dollars are worthless, here's a bag. This is a very special bag. Go to the bank, put all your worthless dollars in there. I'll take them off your hands. You walk into any grocery store, look around, and then you tell me that our dollars are worthless. Ha! The job of the Federal Reserve Bank, which is a very difficult job, by the way, is to make sure there are enough dollars in circulation to match the production of our economy with the consumption of our economy. Too many dollars and we get inflation. Too few dollars and our economic output is stifled and opportunities for growth of our wealth are lost. It is not an easy job. I love it when I hear people scream, "End the Fed." Oh yeah, as if you can do a better job. And now they're being taken to task because of the inflation that's been unleashed, but not by the Fed. It's not a demand-driven inflation. It was a supply-driven inflation, and they knew it was going to happen. They knew it when we shut down the economy during COVID. They knew when we came out, we were going to have inflation. Why? Because there are going to be all these supply disruptions, and the prices of things are going to spike because you just can't get them, even though you need them. And you can't. That's the problem with a $20-some trillion economy. You can't go back and say, there were some people who were saying this. Look, folks, we should not shut down the economy. We should just let people die. Well, yeah, sure. You tell grandma or grandpa that they have to die because they don't want to shut down the economy. And there are others who said, well, you don't understand. Even if we had not shut down the economy would have shut itself down because 1/3 of the population at any one time would not have been able to go to work. So now the Fed is really stuck in a hard place. They've got to get inflation down, but their tools are the demand side by raising interest rates, reducing the demand side. They can't really do a whole lot for the supply side. It's up to us to get our pants on in the morning, get to work, and get the economy going again. And I've been told by people who are a lot smarter than me, it takes a few years. Oh, well. So, slide 28. How does this relate to cryptocurrency, and how do you explain the success of Bitcoin? Well, dear students, there's absolutely nothing to stop other individuals or groups from starting their own cryptocurrencies. Indeed, isn't that what just happened? There were over 6,000 cryptocurrencies at the height of the bubble. It was tulip bulb mania all over again. Eventually, the bottom has fallen out, and some people got very rich and others lost a lot of money. Check out the discussion forum where you'll see one of the posts. Thank you so very much. It was Diana, right? I hope I don't embarrass you, Diana, but she was accosted by a friend of hers who had invested in this one cryptocurrency. And at the time, at the beginning of 2022, it was worth over $300. It's now worth under $5. But it's not over yet. Some are still screaming, soon one day, Bitcoin will be worth $100,000 or even $1 million. There are only so many Bitcoins and the price will skyrocket. Look, folks, again, if an item has no intrinsic value, it does not matter what the supply of them is. They still have no intrinsic value, except for what other greater fools will pay for them. It's called the greater fool theory. Somebody out there is a greater fool than I am. I'll buy high, sell it higher because they will. You wish. As the music's playing, it works great. When the music stops, oh well. I wish the cryptocurrency fans much luck because they're going to need it. But as we mentioned, the technology is very cool, and eventually governments around the world will start creating cryptocurrencies that are tied to their economies. Then those cryptocurrencies will have some kind of intrinsic value that can be estimated, a value placed on them, just as currencies are valued now and traded today. So stay tuned because it's going to happen. We will have digital wallets. But they will be well regulated. There won't be this hanky-panky that's going on. Celebrities won't be going on the internet and the television saying, buy this cryptocurrency because I'm famous. And they gave me a bunch to hawk it. Okay, slide number 31. We're in the home stretch, folks. Just a few more slides. And of course, feel free to break it up. You break up because I want to put everything into one presentation instead of making 3 or 4. Starting a business, folks, is the most profitable investment that anyone can make. But it's also one of the riskiest investments. You've heard the statistics. 50% of businesses fail in the first year. 80% of businesses fail in the first 5 years. 100% of businesses fail in the first 10,000. Wait a minute. Wait, what the? Yeah, no one knows these. These numbers are all made up, folks. The truth is that no one knows the failure rate of small businesses because no one, not even the IRS, knows how many small businesses there are. Another truth is that many small business owners will often fail 2 or 3 times until they succeed. You talk to people who have their own business and they will tell you, not all of them, but most of them will say, there's no way, I could never be an employee. I had to have my own business. And yes, I had 1 or 2 fail, and I'm trying to start another one that might fail, but this one's doing okay, so I'm going to keep this guy going, and maybe I'll sell it. They're entrepreneurs. It's not for everybody, folks. It's not an easy life, but some people wouldn't do it any other way. And it's very interesting. You look at people who are entrepreneurs, business people, risk takers, and often they're not alone in their family. Their parents were business owners, or the uncle, or whatever. It runs in the family. I don't know if it's genetics, culture, or nature, whatever. It's just so very true. And if you are thinking of starting a business, folks, don't do it alone. And by the way, before you have the husband, the wife, the kids, the orthodontia, all the car payments, all this stuff, it's a good idea to get involved in business before that all happens, because not being able to make the rent payment is something. Here are just some of the few resources available, folks. SCORE, awesome group. Service Corps of Retired Executives. Kivo, that's a peer-to-peer lending organization. Accessity used to be called Accion San Diego. And then don't forget the Small Business Development Center here at National City Campus. It's federally funded, but administered by the local centers. Don't go it alone. And of course, remember Southwestern. We've got business classes for you. Yeah, and piece of just one little advice. People will often scorn franchises because the franchise company is going to be taking a big cut of your income, and you have to pay to get in. But the statistics are telling. Typically, franchises have a 5 times more better rate of surviving 5 years. I think it's 5 times. Maybe it's 5 years, and I forget I think it was 80%. Yeah, it's like 5 times better to survive. So don't poo-poo franchises. Some are great, some are awful. So, one of the worst one is Subway. They treat their people. Maybe they've changed, but for many years they treated their franchisees really awful. And of course, McDonald's is the gold standard for franchises. But then there are many, many other types of franchises, not just food and 7-Elevens and the like. So that's it. Now, investment scale. Oh yeah, right. Just remember, folks, there are plenty of people out there who are sociopaths and psychopaths and have no compunction whatsoever to take your money and scam you. One of them was a president, just still believes he's the president. Have you ever seen these ads? Start your real estate empire with no money down. You too can take advantage of the tremendous opportunities now in the wide open real estate foreclosure market. Just take our guaranteed surefire 3-day real estate investment seminar for only $2,995 that will pay for itself in just 1 month. Now, I know you folks are worried about burning your credit card, but don't worry, you're going to pay this credit card off and all your other credit cards in just 2-3 months. And if that doesn't work, we'll sell you the 10-day super secret high Hawaii vacation where you learn the super secrets that you will be on your way toward riches beyond your wildest dreams. If it sounds too good to be true, none of my students will ever fall for these scams. And they're everywhere, folks. They're not just real estate. There's one on the website and in Canvas that you can link on where the guy wants to teach you to be a real estate flipper for only $34,000. And then we're going to teach you how to do options, and that's only $7,000. And we're going to teach you to just stay away. First of all, if you had the secret to making untold riches come true, would you tell anybody else? Slide 34. The bottom lines. Buy a house, make it your home. It should reward you well over the long term, both personally and financially. Learn the ropes regarding being a landlord, possibly working for a property manager. Don't overextend yourself, folks, with too many properties. Please, it looks great as things are going up, but then as things go down, you can get really, really hammered. But hey, you're going to become a professional, so you'll learn. Stay away from precious metals, gems, art, collectibles, cryptocurrencies, NFTs. Just stay away from them. Unless you love it as a hobby first. I had one student who came up to me and said, I'm a big comic book collector. And they come out with new comic books every couple of months, right? He picked up the original Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. And he thumbed through it and he thought, okay, no, I don't think I want to keep this one. Oh, see, one, art piece or one collectible can do, but don't bet the farm. All right, don't bet it for your retirement account. Dream, think, plan about what kind of business you would offer to the world. Maybe someday, yes. And remember that there's an awful lot of business owners who are looking to retire, sell the business somehow. You pay them a salary for a certain amount of years, or maybe you have a down payment and you can finance it. And these are businesses, do all the due diligence, make sure you look at the tax returns and the like. Think about it. And that, dear students, is our discussion of investments. And one last time, you know what I'm going to say, right? If this stuff excites you, piques your interest, you find it enjoyable, you like doing the research, we would love to see you in Business 123 Introduction to Investments. It could be the start of a lifelong learning process where you actually are profitable at the same time, and a career. Yeah. So I apologize for burbling on for over an hour here, but you can break it up into pieces, okay? Next week, our last chapter, Retirement and estate planning, the final chapter of Business 121, Principles of Money Management, and the final chapter of life. See ya!